All right, what's going on, everyone? First of all, I want to say happy birthday to it's Izzy and thing. Happy birthday, Izzy. Pleasure to have you here. Thank you for coming on your birthday. Everybody in chat, when you come in, say happy birthday. We'll say it again once everybody comes in the stream. Couple things I want to do today. First, I want to read Dawn to Dawn, but launching from Dawn to Dawn, I want to talk about, you know, we still have 15-ish days before December ends. I want to talk about like what the best manga have been this year, because I don't know, I feel like there hasn't been any real clear winners. We're in an interesting spot where I don't know, I feel like in past years, at least at certain seasons, there's been very clear series that are like, oh, this is the series that everyone's talking about and nobody will shut up about, right? Sometimes it's been One Piece, sometimes it's been My Hero, Jujutsu Kaisen, whatever. And you know, obviously popularity doesn't mean like quality, but usually there's an indication of like, okay, this is the best manga, clearly, because everyone's talking about it. But I feel like, and maybe I'm out of the loop, I feel like maybe, or it seems like, I should say, that's not really the case this year. Rather, what we have, what seems to make this year unique, is that at least for the first time in a long time, we are in a situation where like there's just a bunch of manga that are doing well, but there's really no clear like, okay, this manga's dominating. And we can look at sales and stuff like that and see, I'm sure Dawn to Dawn is doing well. I'm sure One Piece is doing well. Jujutsu Kaisen, right? All that stuff. Fragrant Flowers, right? Can't stick around today, unfortunately. I'm here to say the answer is Dawn to Dawn, Ichi the Witch, and Fragrant Flower. All right, Edens, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate you. But yeah, this year is very interesting. So this is a combination of me like putting series out there for people, but also you guys in chat telling me like what manga have you been reading this year that you're like, this was clearly the best manga. And what manga have you been seeing in your circles where you're like, these are the manga that like I can't get away from no matter where I go. Yo, hope you're doing great. What sites do you read manga from? Well, Viz, first and foremost. I actually do try to use K-manga, just not very successfully. K-manga is great. K-manga is similar to Viz in that if you're caught up to stuff, it's great because then you can just read stuff for free. Like you can just read the new chapters when they come out for free. It's that all too crucial area of actually wanting to read manga that aren't necessarily, you know, up to date or whatever, right? It's that all too crucial step of actually getting to the new chapters and reading the manga from the beginning that K-manga makes irritably painful. Like it's just terrible. But I do try to use it when I can. I use Weeb Central just because at one point when I tried to use manga decks, they were like This is our whatever site. This is our transfer site, I guess. So I just use that pretty consistently when I go to read manga. It has what I'm looking for. I don't really use, this is something else I wanted to talk about. Do people still use manga decks for stuff? I feel like most of the stuff I try to find on manga decks is not really there anymore, or they're not updating it. I can't stick around too. Best manga is Iruma-kun and Nue's Exorcist. Okay, all right. So a lot of people saying Iruma-kun, Ichi. No Kagurabachis yet, which is interesting. I will throw Kagurabachi in the ring. Dandadan Boruto, Witch Hat Atelier, I'm not caught up on. I do need to catch up. I'm like probably like 5 to 10 chapters behind on Witch Hat, something like that. Fragrant Flowers, Frieren, Chainsaw Man, all 10s for me. Frieren is an interesting one. I do need to catch up on Frieren. I'm probably like 40 chapters behind because I stopped reading after that like flashback arc. I stopped reading at the beginning of this current arc where they're doing like the big mission or whatever, right? Because I knew it was on hiatus, and I was like, well, I'm not going to catch up just to stop in the middle of an arc. Chainsaw Man, obviously, it's had its downs, but it's back up, right? Like, it's doing well. Boruto, I don't really follow enough. Obviously, people really like the new chapters, so I'm not going to sit here and be like, Boruto doesn't deserve to be in the conversation. It consistently gets buzz, generates buzz when there's new chapters. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, why are people talking about it? Clearly is something people like, right? They like the action stuff. They like stuff that's going on with certain characters. I'm not going to deny that. Sunday says Dandadan and Frieren. What if for people who are like up to date with Frieren, right? Like up to date, like last 5 chapters or so. What is it about the newest chapters that you're like, yes, this is prime Frieren? Because to me, after the Golden City arc or the El Dorado arc, I'm like, it's okay. Gotta read Versus. It's from the same creator of One Punch Man. Very underrated. Yeah, I do need to check that one out for sure. You see in Scales, can you tell me what magazine or publisher that is? Are we allowed to talk about the latest Dandadan chapter? Not yet. I want to read it first. I already read it. But I want to look through it one more time and then we'll talk about it. I'd say it's Kagurabachi. Okay. There we go. Right. We got our token Kagurabachi vote. For me, since it's been gas all year. I do think there's been points in the last year or so where it's been more readable than others. Kagurabachi is weird in that like there's certain points where it flows really well, and then there's other points I'm like, okay, blah 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 blah. Jujutsu Kaisen was kind of like that too when it was weekly. Jujutsu Kaisen had weeks where it was like, okay, I don't care. But then obviously there would be weeks where you were like, okay, give me more. Give me, come on, right? Versus is Kodansha. Do we know the magazine? Will you watch Golden Kamuy? I will be watching the new season. Thank you for the reminder. I need to watch the last season or 2. I'm all caught up on the manga, but I might do a video for January, but we'll see. I'm gonna write that down though. Just another nerd. 99, yo, what's going on, nerd? What's going on, Eddie? Eddie said something about Black Clover compared to Attack on Titan, MHA, JJK. I don't know about the animes, but Black Clover? I don't think Black Clover is necessarily better. Its ending is necessarily better than other anime or manga, but it's definitely better than people give it credit for. I mean, you have people saying, you know, Black Clover fell off, it's trash, this, that. Obviously, the Spade arc was not, didn't live perfectly up to expectations, but it's still a solid arc. The Lucius twist is a mixed bag because obviously Black Clover is not great with resurrections, right? And they did it again, sort of. Although it's not really a resurrection. It's more like a twist villain, which Black Clover really likes to do. I think it's a decent twist. I don't hate it, but I'm not crazy about it either. I'm like, okay, it works. But there's like a ton of cool stuff in the last like whatever it is, like 50 to 100 chapters, to where I'm like, how, if you love Black Clover, I don't understand how you don't like this. Like, if you absolutely hate the new Black Clover stuff, I don't see how you liked anything in Black Clover before that. Explaining how underrated Golden Kamuy is. I don't think Golden Kamuy is underrated. I think it's perfectly rated. That being said, I do think the ending is slightly underrated. I think it's just one of those series where like it's not as mainstream, so it doesn't get talked about as much as like Shonen Jump stuff. But if we were to have a conversation about like best manga endings, right? Golden Kamuy is in the conversation for sure. Did you hear Siren is finally getting an anime adaptation? Yeah, I heard something about that. I haven't checked out that series, but that'll be interesting to see for sure. Black Clover is going to be seasonal, so they'll probably do it like they're doing Bleach. Tianmei says Kagurabachi, Samura, and Kyoto arc more than enough to call it manga of the year. I don't read many niche manga. I mostly read the popular ones. That's fine. But the nice thing about what you did there was you acknowledged that you don't read a ton of different manga, but you also don't use that as, you know, like this thing to be like, it's nice because you're self-aware that your opinion isn't all-inclusive, but you don't make this effort to either undermine your opinion or like say, well, I only read the best manga, so this is what matters, right? So I like that. Don to Don. What's going on, Jose? Yeah, Black Clover is going to be seasonal. Same with, I imagine, Boruto when that finally comes back. Let's read the Dawn to Dawn chapter real quick, because this was a huge chapter. If you're not caught up on Dawn to Dawn, then you may want to step out of the stream. So we're gonna read Dawn to Dawn chapter 220. There wasn't like a ton that happened, but what did happen was pretty huge. So we'll just kind of talk about today's chapter real quick, because I want to get back to like manga of the year discussion. Yeah, I've had people recommend Usagoi before. I need to look into that. Oshinoko Season 3 moved from High Dive to Crunchyroll. Will they switch the dubbing? I don't know about the dub, but I think Oshinoko will still be popular. I think it'll be more like Spy Family now. I do think guys like Nicholas Light and Chibi are going to try and hype it up, but I just don't think that many people care about it anymore. I think enough people care that we're already watching it, especially with it being on season 3 now, where they'll watch it, but it'll be like Spy Family, where like only people who already cared about it will watch it. It's not going to be like anime of the year or anything. The novelty of that show has kind of worn off. Maracat says, Ichi the Witch, let's hope he can fight the other 7-star baddies. Yeah, Ichi the Witch was really good this year. We got Oscar in chat. What's going on, Oscar? Oscar, let's pose the same question to you. What manga do you think are manga of the year? And also, what manga come up in your circles, chats, whatever, where even if you don't read them, like you can't get away from them because people are always talking about them this year, not just in general. Gachi Akata. Yep, Gachi Akata is another one for sure. What's this OG topic? Where's the discussion of Dawn to Dawn 220? We're going to do that right now, as a matter of fact. You joined just as we're starting the review of today's chapter. I do want to do a relatively quick review of the chapter, just because there was one important thing in this chapter, but besides that, it was a lot of, you know, more of the same. But there were some interesting details about the chapter, for sure. So let's talk about it. Again, if you're not caught up on the Dawn to Dawn manga, might be a good time to step out and come back. Anyway, so chapter 220, they're coming back from the fight. They go to Momo's house, as they do. So Okarun, being Okarun, is like, all right, well, I'm going to go home now. And Momo, being Momo, is like, hey, big dumb idiot, come in here. Right? I thought it was interesting that Momo responds the way she does when she goes to give Okarun first aid. I don't know, it wasn't out of character, but it was kind of surprising that she was so, I guess, jumpy when she saw Okarun's scars. But I guess it makes sense because she's like a year behind everybody. This was like a very subtle way to imply how much stronger Okarun has gotten throughout the story, though, because there are a couple panels, especially on pages 4 and 5 of this chapter, where Okarun is looking especially buff, right? He's looking especially ripped. And there's another scene that kind of adds to the vagueness of his strength at the moment, but we'll talk about that in a second. Vamola does play a funny role in this dynamic in this chapter. She's almost like the opposite of Chika from Kaguya-sama, because in Kaguya-sama, Chika is very oblivious to the main duos, like to, I'm gonna butcher his name because I haven't read it in a while, Shirogane, right? President, we'll call him President. President and Kaguya-sama's crush, right? And because of that, she's always the catalyst for their shenanigans. Vamola plays an interesting role in this chapter where she's like weirdly aware of their dynamic, but also kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Not tone deaf, but like, I don't know. It's this weird mixture of like, she's very aware of the feelings that are there, but I don't know. It's this weird balance, and I say weird in a good way, but it's this weird balance of like, she's being perfectly observational, but she's not really picking up on the awkwardness because she seems to be very like comfortable with the situation. So she almost feels out of tune with the other two because they're like so awkward, but like their awkwardness is not even, you know, reaching her. She's just, you know, she's cooking, she's doing her thing, she's eating, right? She's cool, she's happy, she's at home. So it is an interesting dynamic between the three of them. But I make the comparison to Chika because she is not ignorant of their dynamic, and yet still ends up being like almost like the force of chaos in this dynamic in this chapter, unintentionally or intentionally. Some of Vamola's faces this chapter were funny. Vamola carried and she didn't even need to. OG, this chapter was so damn funny. I was laughing the entire time. Pointing out his buffness was going to be my comment. See, I wasn't the only one. Turbo Granny's powers use made him peak human buff, probably. That's something I want to talk about for a second, but hold that thought. OG, I told you these questions aren't for me. I'm not even that familiar with the manga scene in Poland. I know, Oscar, I know, but that means you provide the unique perspective of being a casual manga fan as opposed to other people in chat who are more involved, right? Everyone has a perspective to offer. Just because you don't have all of the perspective doesn't mean you don't have a perspective. See what I mean? It's all about getting the totality of the picture. I do know that while the Polish manga market is poorer than in America, we can afford some things Americans can't. Billy Bat was recently released here. Okay. That's pretty cool. This chapter was funny though, and I think that's what a lot of people appreciated. This is like the weird thing about Dawn to Dawn, because I don't know, Dawn to Dawn is in a very weird spot right now where it's kind of just chilling. I think the real reason the community is kind of like quiet right now, so to speak, excuse me, or not as vocal as it has been, is because, excuse me, the anime is not running. So like, you don't have, not tourists, but like you don't have anime fans contributing to the conversation. But besides that, Dawn to Dawn is very weird because like this whole year was like all fights basically. And that coincided with like a very clear rise in people reading the manga. And then towards the end of it, people being like, right? I don't know. I wish I had a graph that tracked like posts in response to new chapters. If I were to guess, without really doing my homework, I would say there was a pretty steady increase. Because if I remember correctly, around the beginning of the year was when we transitioned into that whole Saint Germain, like Minions arc, whatever we want to call it. I think it was towards the beginning of the year where we got that chapter, either right before or right after a Tatsu break, where he reintroduced the mercenary lady, the tsundere lady. So for like the whole year, basically up until a month or two ago, it's just been all fights. So I think people got a little fatigued with that. Right in the middle of the anime. Then the Momo thing happened. The amnesia thing happened. A lot of traction around that. But once that kind of faded away, I feel like that in combination with the anime ending caused like a small break for people, where people like, okay, I need a break from Dawn to Dawn. And then after that, people started to come back. So Dawn to Dawn is weird in that, like, there with some series there's a clear track of, you know, when there's fights, people like it. And when there's no fights and it's slice of life stuff, people are like, I don't care, go back to the fights. Dawn to Dawn is interesting in that, like, within reason, you could have a period of chapters where it's a bunch of really good fights and people would really like it. But it's also built on like the slice of life, like casual nonsense stuff, especially because it's like this action romance hybrid. So people like that stuff as well. I haven't looked on Twitter yet, but I would imagine there was a good reaction to today's chapter because there was some romantic progress that wasn't like, you know, here's the catch, right? It's something that I particularly want to pay attention to going forward. Now that Dawn to Dawn has 2 seasons under its belt, it's no longer novel, and like the manga is kind of like not hit its peak, but like it's been around for a while now. So whoever's sticking around is sticking around, right? Anyway, Dawn to Dawn was a great manga because I read it constantly. Gashi Agata was great even though I haven't read it, but it probably is because the anime is good. Yes, the manga is very good. Trust us. Chainsaw Man's good right now. At least that's what they told me because I'm not up to date. Yeah, the Chainsaw Man stuff right now is good. It's I don't think it's been as consistent as Dawn to Dawn, but it's good. A good shonen series needs to have a good manga and anime adaptation running at the same time for the chemistry of its audience to bounce between. I mean, in an ideal world, yeah, but realistically, you're just never going to have that perfect timing where, like, Dawn to Dawn was crazy, though, with the timing. Like, we met the Subterraneans, and then they got reintroduced in the manga at the exact same time. And then GG/Evil Eye stuff happened, and GG got a power up at the same time. The Dawn to Dawn timing was crazy, but I don't know. It's kind of idealistic to try and aim for this perfect symphony between anime and manga content. There's just gonna be seasons to a manga where some seasons, like, you can't ignore it and people just won't shut up about it. And then there's going to be other seasons where people are like, I'm gonna go read something else for a bit, and that's fine. That's a given for a healthy life cycle of any manga. Happens to One Piece, so it's gonna happen to any other manga. Dave Bautista working on The Last Airbender and Street Fighter. I mean, good for him. I don't particularly care, to be honest, because I think the Street Fighter movie is not going to be what people are hoping it is, but I hope I'm wrong. I really do. Gachi Akata anime ends in a week. When it ends, I will catch up on the entire manga. I am curious to see what you think, because usually I find that it's people who already read the manga watching the anime, so I do want to hear your perspective. I'm one of those people that only like action more than slice of life and romance, and that's okay. That's not wrong. Again, you're being self-aware about it, but you're not being a jackass or a snob about it. That's what good conversation and community is about. Everyone offering their take, their preference, their perspective, so that we can kind of like find that sweet spot of like, okay, the people over here say this and the people over here say this. So like, where's the good stuff right here? You know what I mean? Because if you guys like this and you guys like this, but we're kind of meeting here, then something about right here, that's the good stuff. What do you think makes a good power system in a shonen anime? Rules, character expression, application, and it's also just got to be fun. We got a notification. I missed it, but thank you for whatever the notification was. Yeah, I'm guessing. Oh, it was a subscription. Thank you for joining the channel. Season 3 of Dawn to Dawn is definitely going to have people yapping. I'm actually curious. I think it's going to be pretty popular. I do think there's going to be a number of people that like, you know, Dawn to Dawn, you know, kind of like the way people say like, you know, Naruto's not about ninjas anymore. Some people are going to be like, you know, Dawn to Dawn's not about the romance anymore. And it like went full action. It went full shonen tard, right? Which is a term I'm not crazy about. But I am curious. I think it's going to be popular, but we'll see. How is the Red Hood's mangaka holding up? I don't know about them personally, but Odor of the Flame, I'm not up to date with, but you know, it's kind of more of the same. Slight improvement, but basically more of the same. Regarding Chainsaw Man, Reze's dance tweet became the most liked anime tweet in Twitter history. Damn, it's so good to see the hype for the series again, even more than before. I don't think I saw that tweet. On a semi-random note, the whole Reze versus Bakugo thing was very interesting to see. I think that was just a matter of like MHA and Chainsaw Man being popular at the same time, because prior to that, I don't think we had ever seen people really comparing those two characters based on their powers. Yeah, it is going to be interesting to find out like how they want to finish Chainsaw Man Part 1. I hope they don't just do another movie. I hope they do like an actual season. I get why they did a Reze movie. It was the perfect length for a movie. It's a self-contained story. that has like a transition into and then a transition out of it. So it made perfect sense. That being said, I do hope that they just adapt the rest of part 1 into whatever, 12 episodes, 13 episodes. But we'll see. Yeah, let's get back to the Dawn to Dawn chapter. So they're eating. This was very surprising, and I will note that this is like another small reminder that Vamola is very well acclimated to Earth culture. Because she used to be like the weird alien girl, and now she's just like the girl who, oh yeah, I forgot she's an alien, right? Speaks perfect Japanese, English. Fits in perfectly with all the other kids. Occasionally is like, oh, what are you guys talking about? But that's rarer and rarer, right? And now we found out she's a perfect cook and she can make perfectly normal food that tastes really good. So yeah, she's basically 100% acclimated to life on Earth, which, again, small detail, but I thought was really cool. Other than that, Okarun and Momo play this interesting game of like making people look away. All right, staring contest. We get the Vamola moment, right? You two really get along. Basically saying like you guys are like an old married couple. Okarun... Excuse me. Okarun explains the alien situation in Momo, since she's sort of out of the loop. One thing I do want to mention, so she brings up, right, she's like, he says they have powers, the aliens. So Momo's like, oh, you mean like your powers? And he goes, well, no, I have curse powers, but right now I don't have any powers. I do think it's interesting. I feel like Tatsu is intentionally leaving the question of like what's going on with Okarun slightly open to interpretation. Excuse me. Because even Okarun isn't sure like what's going on, because there was that chapter, like at this point I think like 100 chapters ago, where they had like the baseball game or something, right? Or some gym class thing, and he like smoked everyone, and he was like, what the hell was that, right? He's like, did I do that? I have a feeling Turbo Granny will explain that soon, but I don't know. I also don't know how I feel about Turbo Granny not appearing in this chapter. I hope she appears sometime soon, and I hope she's not going to be gone for like another 30 chapters, because I would be very disappointed. Anyway, so they make a point of acknowledging that like Okarun doesn't really have an answer for like what's going on with his powers. So then Momo says something which like is interesting. She says, you know, you and Ira seem to have something going on. And Okarun responds in like an interesting way that's like definitely open to interpretation. He says, why would you say something like that? And it's like half like, you know, like, you know, nothing's going on, so why are you saying that? But it's also like him possibly being offended. I don't know. It's kind of a vague reaction, so I'm curious to hear how you guys interpreted this scene. It's good that Momo doesn't have a computer. It would be bad if Amola discovered the internet. I don't know, because Gigi does a lot of memes. So I feel like she indirectly is somewhat aware of popular culture. A good point. Chainsaw Man definitely needs to go back to anime for sure. Anyway, so they have their staring contest, and can someone in chat remind me, was this actually something Momo said? Okarune's like, you said, if we ever had like a staring contest, the first one to look away loses. It sounds familiar, but can someone confirm, was this like a thing she actually said? Or is Okarune kind of just making this up in the moment? I couldn't remember exactly. And then of course you have Vamola kind of just agreeing with Okarune because she wants to be supportive. I don't know, it was very funny. Vamola continues to be best girl. I will add, now that I read this a second time, Tatsu does kind of lean into the like romance gimmick of like, well, I'm going to ask you out on a date, but you know, it's going to come with the catch of like, I'm only asking you out because I won something, or because there was a promise, or some kind, there's some like premise, right? As opposed to just like flat out asking her out because he wants to. But that being said, it does stand out from like other examples of that kind of gimmick, because Okarune like does this very confidently. Even if there is kind of a pretense, it's clear that Okarune is doing this because he wants to. Nobody else is pressuring him. It doesn't feel forced. It feels like a nice organic moment as opposed to some other moments. So it's a refreshing twist, and I think most people, again, I haven't seen reactions yet, but I think most people are going to enjoy it for those reasons. Turbo Granny, you think I give my powers away to everyone? How am I supposed to know? Normally I would agree with that, but she also seems to be like an expert on her own powers 9 times out of 10. So I feel like she would probably know what the deal is. I feel like that was Okarune just getting emotional, showing that he cares for Momo's feelings about him and that he cares if she loves him or someone else. Yeah, I agree. I don't think he was like totally offended, but he was like somewhat emotional when she said that. Okarune is so in love with Momo that he now even gets offended when Momo suggests he might have an affair with someone else. He already feels spiritually bound to her by his marriage vows. Marriage vows? He just asked her out on a date. What are you talking about? I wouldn't mind Vamola being a third wheel on their date. Something, I didn't think of that, but now that you say that, I 100% think that's going to happen. And I'm actually going to be surprised if Vamola's not there. Although, I think Vamola will third wheel, and or Momo's girlfriends will also third wheel, right? Because they always find a way to butt into their romantic life. Anyway, so Okarune practically without hesitation says, go on a date with me. It's classic Momo and Okarune banter, right? They just fight about it. Vamola just stands there like blank smile emoji, right? Almost like a doll. like a puppy, right? She goes, "It looks like you're gonna kiss," which again, perfectly on point, but also kind of tone deaf to the awkwardness of the situation. Yeah, so this was a great chapter for anyone who's like really invested in the romance. If you were kind of hoping we would get more Turbo Granny, this was a bit of a disappointment, but I think generally this is one of those chapters where like everyone is happy. I do have a question for everyone though. How are we feeling at this point about the whole Momo amnesia thing? Because at this point I do feel like if it drags on for much longer, it's gonna feel a bit unwelcome. I do feel like we're gonna get to a point soon where people are gonna feel like, okay, come on, Tatsu, like wrap this up, right? Right now, it's working fine. Like a chapter like this is an example of like there can still be meaningful progress in the story while Momo is still going through her whole amnesia thing. But I do think we're going to reach a certain point where people are like, okay, wrap it up. Let's go, right? Like, can we get back to the story, please? This chapter, Vamola had grandma energy. Like, I could envision Vamola as a grandma. I don't know about grandma energy, but whatever you want to call it, she definitely had, like, best friend, third wheel energy, for sure. I do get what you mean, though, with, like, the apron and the dishes and the cooking. Something also to note about Vamola, at least in this chapter, is she also seems to be going through a very subtle haircut change, like Okarun, where her hair is less bob cut now, and it's more like single mom-ish, right? Like housewife-ish, like short, kind of messy, but like kind of clean, right? Men only want one thing and it's disgusting. Men want to have a relationship like Momo and Okarun. Yeah, pretty much. That would make a good meme. I wonder if Vamola no longer has any romantic feelings for Okarun. That has not been a thing for so long. It lasted like 2 seconds and it went away so fast. I don't think she has any romantic feelings for anyone in the story right now. That being said, I do think it would be interesting if Vamola got her own romantic subplot at some point. We've talked about this before, but it does feel like with the other characters, their romantic subplots are kind of like on the side so that we can, so as not to distract from Momo and Okarun. It was not that case for a while, and they would kind of force themselves into the story, but now we're at a point where like Tatsu has moved away from that, thankfully. Gigi is chilling. Ira is chilling more so. So yeah, we're at a pretty good point with Dawn to Dawn right now. I bet they go on a date that's supposed to be normal and then it gets attacked. Yeah, that's a pretty safe bet. That's pretty textbook Dawn to Dawn. It would be cool if on their date they run into Gigi and then Vamola has to distract him and then we get 2 dates at the same time. No, I don't think that's a stretch. I just don't know what the likelihood of that will be. I do want to say this about Dawn to Dawn. And then I want to transition back to our manga of the year topic. We got like another 10 minutes. 10 or so minutes. Dawn is special. I don't necessarily want to say unique because it's not the only manga like this, but Dawn is special in that even after 220 chapters, it is still at a point where it can continue to tell a story where even now I truly never know what's going to happen next. Like right now, obviously there's going to be a date, right? But I genuinely have no idea what this date is going to look like with a degree of certainty. Like, I think probably what's going to happen is they'll go on a normal date, someone's going to tag along, someone's going to be a third wheel, and then they're going to get attacked by monsters or aliens, right? Something like that. I think that's a pretty safe bet. But other than that, I have no idea, right? Like Gigi could tag along, Vamol, Ira, the whole occult club could tag along, Saint Germain could tag along, right? Like anything could happen, and because it's Dawn to Dawn, it would work. So something special about Dawn to Dawn is that it's just always progressing for now, and it's always keeping the story fresh, and that's something that like you can't really say about too many manga. Like there are certain manga where at a certain point it becomes relatively predictable. There's really no point in the story where it's ever really been predictable. Not really. For that reason, mainly, I do think Dawn to Dawn is in the conversation for best ongoing manga and one of the best manga of the year. Excuse me. Gachi Akata is part of that conversation. Ichi the Witch. Kagurabachi, for sure, especially now that I've caught up. Before catching up, I was like, I don't see it. Now that I'm caught up, I'm like, yeah, for sure. I know this is a silly idea, but what if the way that Saint Germain or whoever the main antagonist gets defeated is by getting rizzed by Granny Seiko? I wouldn't be surprised. I think that would be pretty funny. Dawn to Dawn can be kind of like unceremonious in that way. Dawn to Dawn, Chainsaw Man is another one. Dawn to Dawn, Chainsaw Man, Kagurabachi, Ichi the Witch. I want to say Galaxius, but it's like, it's right there. It's right there. I would say it's one of the more interesting ongoing manga. I don't know if I would say it, for me, it's one of my favorite ongoing manga, but I hesitate to put it in that conversation just because, again, it's only got like 30 or 40 chapters and it's still pretty early. So it's like, plus, it's tough with monthly manga or manga that are like, you know, every 1 or 2, like 2 or 3 weeks, right? So that in combination with like the still it being early thing for it, it's like, it's right there. I think this time next year, Galaxius will have more of a reputation, I think. Alien Girl and Ultra Nerd are the perfect combination. I think that would be the perfect combination once Kinta becomes like more manly, I guess. Like more Okarun like, if that makes sense. Right now he's like still kind of juvenile or like immature. Plus, for that dynamic, like on paper, when you put it that way, it sounds perfect. But like they're not like the most compatible couple, because Vamola is like golden retriever, whereas like Kinta is like very, I don't know. I could see that work, but in my mind, I don't see them like very emotionally compatible. Like they don't cover each other, if that makes sense. What about Frieren? I'm not up to date on Frieren. I will change that and I will talk about it sometime soon. That being said, if I was just going by the Golden City arc or the El Dorado arc, I would say that, but that was a hot minute ago. And honestly, everything after that, I'm just like, it's okay. I'm gonna, for now, for Frieren, I'm gonna say TBD, to be determined. More manly, should he switch from Gundam to Baki? No, we need as many sci-fi anime fans as we can get. That being said, Okarun is also into sci-fi. Obviously, he's a bit more manly, so you know what I mean. I love how you just confessed that Okarun is manly. He is. I mean, look at him in this chapter. Bro looks like Baki. He's ripped. He's shredded. He's yoked. Look at the feathers. Look at the striations. The man is juicing. I don't think there's any manga series that ever made past or even reached five. I think this series should end in like 500, 1,000 chapters with Momo getting Okarun's balls. Jose said, I don't think there's any manga series that ever made it past or even reached 500 chapters. One Piece, JoJo, and Hajime no Ippo are looking at you right now like, am I a joke to you? Unless you're talking about something totally different, but I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't think Kinta needs to lose weight. I just think he needs to like grow up a bit, if that makes sense. I also just think like their personalities are like kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Asymmetrical, if that makes sense. Like they don't really like connect. At least not in this current time. Okay, that's what I thought you mean. No, most manga end around like 300-ish chapters. I would like to say that Dawn to Dawn is the best manga out right now because it is unpredictable. But the problem is that you can say the same about Gachi Akata and Chainsaw Man also. It's not so much... So it's the fact that it's unpredictable in a good way. It is consistently surprising. I think with Chainsaw Man, it's always surprising, or it's always unpredictable, but there are certain points in Chainsaw Man where like you don't see certain things happening, but it is on an emotional level kind of predictable. And there are certain points where like, yeah, okay, like should have seen that coming, right? I don't know, it's different. But I do agree that like predictability or unpredictability in of itself is not like an indicator of like good story. It's got to be more like being surprising while also consistently progressing the story. I'm trying to think. Outside of like the usual battle series, somebody said it before, Iramakun is also very good right now. I will throw Iramakun into the conversation. Mad is definitely in the conversation. Mad is insanely good on Jump Plus. Can't recommend that enough. Centauria also very good. I actually like Mad better right now than Centauria, but Centauria also very good. Hero Organization is in a good spot right now. Trying to think what else. I just caught up. Well, I still have like 40 chapters to read. Shangri-La Frontier, also really good right now. Trying to think. Demons of the Shadow Realm. I was trying to remember what the hell it's called. Demons of the Shadow Realm is in the conversation. At this point, I don't know if it's like manga of the year contender, but it is in that conversation. Like if somebody brings it up, I'm going to be like, sure. The story is really good right now, but I don't necessarily know that I would put it on the same level as Gachi Akata or Dawn right now. In general, right? I would put it in the same conversation. I just think the last 12 or so chapters have been like good, but not as good as some of the other stuff that's been coming out. The series as a whole is awesome, but if we're talking about like just this year, it's a toss-up. Oscar, I feel both of those series have that. So, excuse me, Gachi Akata can also be crazy, and Dawn can also be unpredictable with the plot stuff. Like, nobody saw the amnesia thing coming, right? And nobody saw, like, say, Queen Sensei coming back into the story. So I do hear what you're saying though. Like different stories are unpredictable for certain reasons. I do get that for sure. Have I read any light novels? No. If I want to read a book, I'll go read a book. I mean that sincerely. Like, if I'm like in my anime manga space, I'll read anime or manga. But if I'm going to read a book, I'm going to go read whatever I haven't read yet, like Lord of the Rings, the Warhammer 40k books, Brandon Sanderson, maybe some business books, some history books, you know, it's classic literature or something like that. Maybe some Charles Dickens, right? No disrespect to light novels, but like there's only so much time in the day, and if I'm not playing video games, reading manga, or watching anime, there's so much other stuff that I would rather read. Comic books, actual novels, right? Stuff like that. There's light novels that are interesting, but I'm just like, there's so much other stuff that's higher on my priority list. How are we doing on time? Where are we? We're at 1 hour and 4. I'm trying to think before we close out the stream. I do just want to point out other series that I would throw into the conversation. I would potentially put Kaihen Wizard into the conversation. I think that's Weekly Shonen Sunday. I would potentially put that in the conversation for like manga of the year. The only issue being that that's also like Frieren, where it's plagued by hiatus. So like it's kind of hard to compare it to more consistent series. That being said, I just read it and caught up, and it is so freaking good that like even if I don't really seriously consider it as a contender, I am going to bring it into the conversation, at least for like best new manga, right? Newer manga. Have you ever read After God? I have not. I don't even know what that is. I'm gonna dive into ReZero this year. I want to watch the anime. I don't think I'll ever read the light novels or whatever the source material is, but excuse me. I definitely want to watch the anime. With Dandadan, I'm like, what the heck is going on? And with Gachi Akata, I'm like, this is probably going to happen now. Never mind, something completely. Yeah, exactly. And then Chainsaw Man is that weird third option where like anything you think about Chainsaw Man is just like, nope, sorry, not happening. I do hear what you're saying though. I'm trying to think. I'm trying not to like just throw in like best new manga, because I think best new manga and best manga of the year are kind of different conversations. It's like they're different weight classes, right? Because for a manga that's like 30 or less chapters to be in like manga of the year conversation, it has to have been like generationally good. So for example, one of my favorite new manga this year is Someone Hurts. I think it's very good. I think it is a nice blend between the gag comedy formula and the romance genre. But I would not put it in manga of the year conversation. Not even close. Same thing for Fall in Love, You False Angels. I just read that recently. Good, and definitely has the potential to be an exciting story. Still has a long way to go before it reaches the same emotional highs as like Dandadan or Gachi Akata, or even Galaxius for that matter. Did you see that Siren is getting an anime? Yeah, we were just talking about that earlier. Pretty old manga. Back from like the Bleach and Naruto days. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see for sure, because it's such an old series. It's like, are people even going to check it out? I think it'll be popular, at least for the first season. Yeah, I definitely want to watch ReZero for sure. We did Weekly Shonen Magazine. Yeah, I'm trying not to just like turn this into best new manga, because again, that's a different conversation. There are manga I would like to throw in that I'm like, nah, that's just really stuff that's like worth checking out. It's not really contender of the year. I do need to catch back up on Marshall King. I would like to see where that is in the conversation. I'm sure some people might say Windbreaker. I'm kind of out of the loop on that one. Ooh. Oh. Iruma-kun. I'm sure some people are going to say like Boruto, which is fine. I'll give them that. People always say One Punch Man. I am not up to date on One Punch Man, but I'm like, doubtful, respectfully. Yeah, that's kind of it, really. I would be curious. Nobody's really bringing up anything. Marshall King is on hiatus? I had no idea. What the hell? Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting for sure. Personally, I don't like Someone Hurts. The jokes just aren't there. It's kind of like other jump gag series where like the jokes can be very hit or miss. And unless you have more of a dry sense of humor, it's just not that funny, right? That being said, I have a dry sense of humor and I think it's really funny. And also I think the characters are charming and they have a really nice chemistry. So I find it like a nice chill series. Nobody's really recommending anything else though, so I feel like I'm kind of hitting the big ones. I would say maybe people might throw in JoJo Lands, but I have not seen a ton of buzz around that series, so I think it's still early to say for that one. I haven't really seen a lot of buzz for Dungeon Meshi either. So I'd be curious to see what's going on with Dungeon Meshi. After God has 92 chapters, the story follows a normal looking plot until chapter 13. Big twists, character writing and thing. Okay, I'll have to check it out. Cool. There's no break for next week. Do you think this will be the last chapter of the year, or will there be 2? Dungeon Meshi is over? Is it? Oh, I didn't know that. I thought it was still running. Oh, it ended in 2023. Oops, my bad. Shows how out of the loop I am. Oops. 14 volumes. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense then why nobody's talking about it. Oops, my bad. Oopsies. I was gonna read Windbreaker, but I got too woke. Yeah, I don't exactly agree with that take. You're entitled to your opinion, but I'm also not caught up, so I'm not gonna go there. But yeah, Dungeon Meshi definitely ended. That's funny. Hey, you know what? I like to stay up to date with as many manga as I can. Obviously, I missed the ball on that one. Anyway, that's gonna be it for today's stream. I wanted to try and aim for like an hour and a half, but really that's all I have to say. We talked about Dawn to Dawn. There's really nothing more I have to say. Everyone seems to be kind of on the same page for manga of the year. We'll probably bring it up one more time. I would like to try and maybe get some guests on here and do not like a formal manga of the year stream, but just like a casual chat and rap, right? Have like a chill end of the year stream, see what people are doing. I won't name any names just in case I can't get them. But yeah, no stream Thursday. We're gonna stream Wednesday because I won't be home Thursday to stream. So stream Wednesday for everyone in chat, and I'll try and do a notification ahead of time so that people can see it. But for everyone here, make a mental note, stream Wednesday, same time as usual, and then there won't be a stream Thursday. But yeah, also check out today's video. If you missed today's video, it was a MHA video. There'll be more videos this week, obviously. But yeah, that's it. Thanks, Oscar. Thanks, Justin. Aho Height, Jose, Yap Reviews, Eddie Rayman, everybody else. Have a good afternoon, and I will see you soon. Peace.